against the Monophysites. That one's huge.
Yeah, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I've really started getting into the essence energy distinction because I caught one of your live streams on like how I'm pretty sure it was a Catholic, and again I was Roman Catholic
Mm-hmm.
before I joined Orthodoxy. But I think his argument that was because um, there's a real distinction between the essence and energies that makes God composite.
Mm. Well, that's just a misrepresenting what it means for there to be a real distinction in God, right? So in the Roman Catholic Church, if you say there's a real distinction, yeah, that's going to sound problematic because most of the time they would affirm that regards some form of separation. Sorry, some form of separation or a composition in some way, right?
Mhm.
And so that's one of their presuppositions if you say that something's a real distinction. They don't realize, of course, that when we say it's a real distinction, we're not actually entailing the same metaphysical presuppositions that they have. When we say that there's a real distinction, all it means is that it's really in God. That's all that means. It
Right.
means that it's prior to the intellect, right? This is what our saints affirm. And there's nothing that actually necessitates that there's a composition or like a separation or two gods or however they want to try to make that argument. There is
Yeah.
no there is no actual argument for that without just presupposing the scholastic method, right? Which
Yeah, I
that
get
in of
that.
itself, like I don't have like why should I accept that? Like why should I accept that if I say it's a real distinction, suddenly all of this metaphysical baggage entails? Why? You haven't made an argument as to how that has to be the case, right?
Mhm.
That's just the way it's defined in your guys' textbooks. If it's real, then it's separated. Okay, why? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, at least from my understanding is Saint Maximus the Confessor kind of already answers this
Mm-hmm.
in the fact that the fullness of divinity is within three both all of the persons,
Yep.
but yet there's still a real distinction because it's presupposing intellect.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
So if you're going to say that if you're going to say that there's a if the distinction is real, that means it makes composite. That means Saint Gregory of Nyssa is wrong when he writes on not three gods.
yeah. I mean, every father affirms that there's a real distinction in the persons, right?
Hmm.
This is kind of like a lower tier argument that I'll make. I don't use it very often because I'm normally debating Catholics that are like super trying to make like mega critiques. But think of it like this, right? If there's no issue with there truly being real distinctions in the hypostases, right? And they truly do pick out individual subsistences, but God is still not composite. Why is it that if I were to theoretically say that for the sake of energies, why would it now be composite?
Right.
I mean, what's that criteria there? Why can that not be the case? And they usually will say that, oh well, because there's opposition. Well, we don't affirm that opposition is the only way to determine a real distinction. So I just deny that and just say that's not the case. You can determine a real distinction between formal constituents, or as it's known as origin. Origin.
Right.
You got to remember that the
Yeah.
energies are inherent in the essence. They're in the essence. They don't have a subsistence. They don't have a substance of any kind. So if you say that it's a real distinction, you're simply just saying that it's fully realized in God and that it's real in God Himself, prior to a human being, right, making the argument that there's a distinction between what God is versus what God does. God
Hmm.
knows the difference between what He is versus what He does. That's part of the argument. The fact that God makes that own distinction within the way in which we make the distinctions in things, actually, like that would actually map to it being a real distinction. Because you have to think that basically God wouldn't know the difference between His essence and His acts in order for there to truly not be any form of distinction. All we're doing is just inquiring on the distinction. We're just realizing it. We're just seeing it. We're seeing what God has already affirmed. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly. And which is why, at least for us, that's why it's so integral to theosis.
Yeah.
Because I think if I remember correctly, a priest said this on a video that the fathers kind of use the example of a furnace fire and steel. It's like when you put the steel into the fire, it takes on the properties of the fire by heat and light, but by essence, it's still steel.
Yeah. Things like that. There's also the analogy. Let me read you Saint Nielos Cabasilas's analogy. I think it'll really help, like, understand a little bit how EED works, like just in a general sense. It's like honestly the best explanation that there is. It's very short too. It's in his Rule of Theology. In case you didn't know this, Saint Nielos Cabasilas is Saint Gregory Palamas's disciple. And he said in chapter 13 of his Rule on Theology, he said, observe that fire has the power to illuminate, but also the power to warm. It is born upwards. It melts and dries things. And many other things too are around fire, differing both from the fire's essence and from each other. Though fire warms many things, it illuminates only those possessed of sight. And what that it enlightens instantly, while to those things that it warms, it communicates its power in time. If, however, the power to warm were identical to the power to enlighten, then whatever partakes of the warmth would also partake of its light. Yet a hand perceives heat, but not light. So what then? Is the power to enlighten separate from the power to warm? Or can you find warmth separated from the power to enlighten just because these powers differ from one another? In no wise. Huge.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Because I have St. Gregory Palamas's the Triads.
Good
I
book.
have the book on that. Yeah.
Really good book.
And yeah, I like when I first read it, I was like, okay, I got to study a little more because I don't understand any of this. This is way too complex for my book.
Yeah.
But,
EED is complex, man. It's not easy to understand. I think
Yeah.
that it's honestly the biggest obstacle for apologists in orthodoxy is understanding the essence energies distinction without accidentally, committing a heresy somehow or misrepresenting the church. It's not easy.
Yeah, but once I've started to get into it a little bit more, I think it's very clear that I know, like, obviously because I was Catholic, you want to kind of accuse Gregory Palamas of changing the faith in some way, but he's really just kind of like reiterating and grounding the Cappadocian fathers
Yeah.
in their theology. Like I have let me find it. I have On the Holy Spirit by Saint Basil the Great,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of what he says about the Spirit is very similar to Saint Basil in his argumentation. Like it's very, very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's trying to read the Cappadocians and seeing how similar they are to like the post-schism Eastern Fathers is insane. Like you see the EED that's taught in the post-schism Fathers, you can see it in the Cappadocians like so clearly. It's not even funny. It's one of the best arguments, right, for orthodoxy. Honestly, is the theology that the fathers of the first millennia taught. The way that they talked about distinctions, the way that they talked about the way God is and how God is, right? That's the best argument. It's, in my opinion, the best argument for orthodoxy because you can make a really, really good case for the fathers affirming the position like we do. When people like Thomas, for example, have to jump through 1,000 hoops to even try to make something the case. All right. Oh, well, the freaking St. Gregory of Nyssa, said that there's the cause and then the other from the cause. So he's affirming relative opposition. Ah! You're like, wow, what a jump, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the fact that Constantinople I could have used Augustine theology, but they chose Cappadocian theology because it was the most consistent.
Well, and the thing as well, right, is that St. Augustine's Trinity, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with the way that he proclaimed the Trinity. It's just he retracted many different things with what he said, right? He kind of changed his mind multiple times, which honestly is the reason why I love St. Augustine so much. He's honestly the most real, one of the most real saints, I think, that we got. That man is relatable on so many levels.
His conversion story, especially.
Yeah, when he was a Manichaean, right? Yeah, he was terrifying to the Christians too back when he was a Manichaean, because Augustine was a preceptor, a very early version of a preceptor. And back then in philosophy, nobody had any idea how to debate against precept, like, at all. And his argument for God is a precept argument, like tag. It's very similar to tag. And when he was a Manichaean, he was running it to basically try to prove the ontology of evil. And Christians didn't know what to do. They just didn't. Because it's a precept argument. I mean, there was no precept to the precept back then. Like, nobody had the meta precepts.
Right.
You know, like somebody saying, how do you know that? Right? Like, nowadays, you can just be like, I don't know that. But how do you know that? You know what I mean? Like, there's meta to it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's ways to debate against somebody who... there's ways to debate against somebody who argues in that manner. Back then, though, if someone said, how do you know that? And you can't immediately answer, you're conceding, bro. That's a concession. Back then, I mean, ancient philosophy, like, that was just the way it was. Oh, you don't have an answer for this? Cooked.
Yeah.
GG's.
And, you know, you couldn't use Plato's excuse of flexing to make a point, but...
Yeah, exactly.
Or was it Socrates? I don't know.
No, it was Plato. It was Plato. Plato was a Olympic wrestler. He did that.
I still find that hilarious. Because, you know, I mean, you make a good point. I mean...
Yo,
your bicycle.
by the way,
Yo,
sorry
go
if I
pray,
have,
go pray, bro.
background noise. No, you gotta pray when like the adhan is finished.